It's quiz time once again on Stuview TV. Today you get to test your knowledge of the 1980s with the 80s General Knowledge Quiz. 25 multiple choice questions on all aspects of the decade that was the 1980s. As always, best of luck and enjoy the quiz. Question 1. Who was the longest serving US President of the 1980s? Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan or George Bush? It was Ronald Reagan. Question 2. In which city did the 1984 Summer Olympic Games take place? Was it in Moscow, Seoul or Los Angeles? The 84 Olympics were in Los Angeles. Number 3. In 1982, Queen Elizabeth II celebrated how many years on the British throne? 25, 30 or 35? It was 30. Number 4. What nationality is Erno Rubik, the inventor of the Rubik's Cube? Hungarian, Romanian or Polish? Erno Rubik is Hungarian. Which formidable figure of the 1980s was nicknamed the Iron Lady? Was it Mary Whitehouse, Barbara Woodhouse or Margaret Thatcher? I'm sure most of you would have remembered that. It's Margaret Thatcher. Question 6. What was the best-selling car of the 1980s in the United Kingdom? The Ford Fiesta, the Ford Escort or the Vauxhall Cavalier? Ford Escort. Number 7. In which year did the Live Aid concerts take place in London and Philadelphia? 1984, 1985 or 1986? They took place in 1985. Question 8. First released in 1982, what was the world's top grossing film of the 1980s? Ghostbusters, Back to the Future or E.T.? It was E.T. And following on, number 9, who was the director of E.T.? Was it Steven Spielberg, George Lucas or James Cameron? Director of E.T. was Steven Spielberg. Number 10. In which year did the very first space shuttle launch? Was that in 1981, 1982 or 1983? First launch was in 1981. Number 11. Which of the following board games was the only one to make its debut during the 1980s? Was it Mousetrap, Hungry Hungry Hippos or Trivial Pursuit? Trivial Pursuit. Number 12. Which of the following had the most solo number ones on the UK singles chart during the 1980s? Was that Madonna, Michael Jackson or Cliff Richard? It was Madonna. Question 13, proving to be a huge commercial failure when launched in 1985, what is the name of this vehicle? The Spectrum C5, Sinclair C5 or Sega C5? It was of course the Sinclair C5. Number 14, which company released the very first commercially available compact disc player in 1982? Was that JVC, Panasonic or Sony? It was Sony. Question 15. In 1985, aged just 17, who became the youngest ever men's singles champion at Wimbledon? Boris Becker, Pat Cash or Stefan Edberg? It was Boris Becker. Number 16, when first released in Japan in 1980, by what name was iconic video game character Pac-Man known as? Was it Pizza Man, Hookman or Pixel Man? Initially he was known as Hookman. Number 17, what was the world's most populous country at the beginning of the 1980s? China, India or the United States? It was the same as it is now, China. Number 18, where did the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer take place in 1981? Windsor Castle, Westminster Abbey or St Paul's Cathedral? It was at St Paul's Cathedral. Number 19, which was the only country to win the Eurovision Song Contest twice during the 1980s? Germany, Ireland or the United Kingdom? It was Ireland, or more specifically, Johnny Logan. Number 20, which British comedy legend announced their retirement from performing in 1987 at the age of 58? Ronnie Barker, Eric Morecambe or Ronnie Corbett? It was the late and very much great Ronnie Barker. 21, in 1983, who became the first player to make a 147 maximum break at the World Snooker Championship? Steve Davis, Jimmy White or Cliff Thorburn? It was Cliff Thorburn. 22, a huge fashion craze of the 80s, shoulder pads were actually first worn by women in which decade? The 1930s, 1940s or 1950s? It was way back in the 1930s. Number 23, which author had the most books in the list of top 20 fiction bestsellers of the 1980s? Stephen King, Tom Clancy, Danielle Steele? It was Stephen King who had 5 in the top 20, Danielle Steele and Tom Clancy both had 4. Still the biggest selling music album of all time, Thriller by Michael Jackson was first released in which year? 1980, 1982 or 1984? Thriller was first released in 1982. And 25, which of these items was added to the McDonald's menu in the 1980s? Big Mac, Egg McMuffin or Chicken McNuggets? It was Chicken McNuggets. How well did you do on today's nostalgic quiz? Do let me know your score in the comments. This time I've let YouTube decide which other Stuview TV video to recommend just for you, so I hope they've chosen well. As always, many thanks for watching.